All right, welcome in. The floor is yours. An extension of 5 on the floor here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. This is where we take your questions and your comments. If you want to make sure that we read them, send us some cash. We'll certainly take that. We've got to pay the bill from our watch party last night over at Dangerous Minds Brewery. We appreciate them hosting us. Our next watch party, next Monday, Quarterdeck, Sunrise. I was actually at the one at Davie today, and I said, we probably should have done it at the one at Davie. But that's all right. We're going to do it at the one at Sunrise. It's right near the Panther Arena, and here's the best part. The Panthers are playing that night, but not at home. So you will not be dealing with that traffic. Okay, Alex, I know we talked about that yesterday. They will not be playing at home, but they are playing. So it's actually a Panthers-Rangers, Heat-Nuggets, Bears-Steelers watch party. That's a pretty good watch party. So we're all going to have a lot of fun there Monday night at Quarterdeck. I do have some more hats that I did not give away last night, so we will be there giving those away. We had a good crowd last night, and I'm expecting an even better crowd next time. By the way, Brady Hawk is expected to attend. We're going to get him a fake ID. All right, we are sponsored here, as always, by our friends over at Biscayne Bay Brewing, but also by our friends over at Everything Trade Shows. Another local sponsor here, based right down there on Las Olas, very close to where I live. But they service all 50 states, and here's the thing about trade shows. You see this, what they got there? Those are all the companies that they work with. There's some pretty big companies on there. I see a Microsoft on there. I see a Citrix on there. These are the companies that trust Everything Trade Shows. So your business should trust them too. Trade shows are coming back all over the country. Again, in Fort Lauderdale, at Broward Convention Center, also at the Miami Beach Convention Center, the Miami Airport, but everywhere. They're coming back, and you want to make sure that your booth build is done correctly. They do the whole thing. They do everything, okay? They will tell you, too, the difference between renting and buying, what makes sense for you. And they'll do the rendering for free, completely free, if you mention 5 Reasons. That means it will show you exactly how it looks. So go to everythingtradeshows.com. You can see all the great work that they do there. Our guy Chris Chase sending me pictures from all around the country. He's got a better job than I do. Go to everythingtradeshows.com. That's everythingtradeshows.com. There it is. There's Chris, and they're based right there in Fort Lauderdale. Again, you can find the excuse me, as I'm dying. You can find the phone number there right there. Maybe I can find a trade show for like relentless coughing that has nothing to do with COVID. Everythingtradeshows.com. It's everythingtradeshows.com. Make sure that you check them out. We always mention go to prizepicks.com and use that code 5 if you want to play daily fantasy. All right, let's get to it. That's the new court, of course, which is going to debut on Thursday night. Alex and Brady will be out there. The Celtics, we think they're all coming. We're not exactly sure. I've got next to me Greg Sylvander. Up in the top left, we've got Alex Toledo, who, again, did not smile in another picture yesterday. His streak is unbroken. And then we've got...
Ain't nothing funny.
And then I'm not funny. And then we're going to get to our next guy here, Ariel Attias.
It's
so
sick.
close.
Greg, you've got this. How do we do it?
Ariel Attias.
Yes, sir.
You know, I had Alana on with Michael McCullough.
That last name, you have trouble.
I was about to butcher that. And then by the end of the show, Michael was trying to hire her away to the Heat because perhaps Michael can pronounce her last name and I can't. All right, here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about 2 players exclusively, okay? We're not going to talk Jimmy. We're not going to talk Duncan. I am tired of people complaining about Duncan Robinson when the team is, like, historically good through the first 7 games. It's enough, okay? And we're not going to talk about Kyle Lowry because we do that all the damn time. And I know Raptors fans are all freaking out today because for some reason they wanted him to be a Maverick. I don't even understand what that means. But let's get into Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro. And it sort of hit me as we're going through the Dolphins' dysfunction and everything else. If you need another example of how, like, well-run the Heat are, they have, you know, the likely 6th man of the year, which somebody put a little money on that, and the likely defensive player of the year, and they got them with the 13th and 14th picks in the draft, which is outrageous. So we're going to talk about trajectory here for both guys. And we're going to take your comments specifically related to those 2 guys. We talk about Bam, no ceiling all the time. We're going to start with Tyler then, okay? Because I feel like the calculus here has changed. Regardless of whether or not, you know, you want to take his comments to our friend Jeremy Taché out of context, which is what Barkley and others did last night, okay? I am an awful person. I agree with that. Regardless of when you want to take all of that out of context, the reality is Tyler Herro believes he belongs in that kind of company or that he can belong in the type of company like a Trae Young, like Luka Doncic. And Pat Riley came out at his press conference a couple weeks ago and basically said that he might tell a young player not to put the bullseye on your back like that, But if you put the bullseye on your back and you perform to a level of 22, 6, and 5 or something like that through the first 7 games of the season, and you're shooting close to 48%, it's okay to put the bullseye on your back. So let me ask you this, and I'll start with Ariel here because I can't pronounce his name, and because he's the guest here tonight in the 4th chair. Like, have you changed your calculus on Tyler Herro?
I don't know if y'all paid attention to the post-game shows last year, but if you didn't, we'll just pretend that never happened. And absolutely. I mean, he's completely changed the trajectory of I think what most of us look at Tyler Herro as being. So like in the offseason, I think if you had asked a lot of this fan base, a lot of them would have probably moved him in a potential Colin Sexton deal, for example. I think the way he's playing right now, obviously that's entirely off the table. You wouldn't even entertain that for a second. He's, you mentioned that he was probably the leader right now. I mean, has to be the leader at this stage in the season for 6th man of the year. I think we're getting to a point that not only is he not even going to be in that discussion because you're going to have to start him. Like realistically, at some point here, you're going to have to start him. And I get that everybody loves bringing up how, he gives you that scoring off the bench, the playmaking off the bench, the ball handling, all of that stuff. In reality, it doesn't really matter because Eric Spoelstra is never running 5-man bench units on the court at the same time. He's always got Jimmy, Bam, and or Kyle on the court with those bench guys. So he's staggering. And so I don't think it's as impactful or as important. I think with the level that he's playing at, if he sustains 22, 6, and 5 on 47, 41, 85, which I expect to come down a little bit, but not too much because, man, the improvements in his game have been real. He's not just shooting hot, right? Like he's not just shooting the ball better. He's processing the game quicker. Everything is slowed down for him. He's making exceptional reads out of the pick and roll. And when he gets downhill, he's finding guys and he's drawing more defensive attention. If you rewatch some of the Heat's games and their offensive possessions, all eyes are on him all the time. I think Brady might have made a tweet about that earlier today about how at one point in the game, like all 5 Maverick defenders are focused on Tyler Herro and he's able to spray that ball out and it results in the Kyle Lowry wide open 3. He makes an impressive cross-body pass and it's just things like that all the time. He was never able to do that coming into this season. So I think we're getting to a point where if the Heat continue playing at this level and he continues producing at this level, you're going to have to start him, and he might enter the all-star conversation a little bit.
All right, so I agree with absolutely everything you said there. I just don't see the need to start him. I really don't.
I think it's for him, though, because he wants it. Like, when he talks about it, he says, like, yeah, I want to start, but, of course, I'm going to do what Spo wants. He wants it.
And I get that, but he hasn't really said it recently. That's what I'm saying. I think eventually it comes, but, I mean, if he's playing 33 to 35 minutes a game, and regardless of Barkley's ridiculous comments yesterday about how he plays against second teamers, he's playing the whole 4th quarter. Did the bench play the whole 4th quarter?
Complete nonsense.
It's total nonsense. But Alice, okay, and we'll get back to a lot of the other things Ariel said. But I guess Alice, why would he? To placate him. I mean, he's still on a rookie deal. Like he's not going to demand a trade, right? Like, and it does seem like the pieces fit better with what they currently have constructed.
Look, I think placating him is one reason out of a few that you could do it because I do think there's a real case for starting Tyler. I probably still lean on, just keeping Duncan as a starter, keeping Tyler as a 6th man and going with what's clearly working, right? Even if there is some regression to the mean or whatever you might be expecting, right? Like it just feels like they've kind of found something that works. I think Tyler, the way he's playing right now is not just starter level. He's looking like a borderline all-star the way he's played these first few games. So that's why I think like him wanting to start is more than understandable. I think he's their 4th best player right now. And it's pretty obvious. Whereas before, I think everybody would have said Duncan. Tyler is looking like a different type of player. He absolutely should start just like when you're just talking about what he's producing out there, his skill set, what he's done so far. I don't know. I just think like it's tough to mess with something that works. I think the Heat also kind of feel that way. I've been, perusing through some of these stats of his here just to kind of compare the, volume and efficiency to what he's done the past couple of seasons. He's career high in true shooting, career high in effective field goal percentage. There was a stat earlier. I think it was Simon Sperling who tweeted out like where he ranked in the league in mid-range efficiency, and it was up there in volume with those other stars that were up there. Right. So what he's doing right now is he's really found that comfort spot playing as a 3-level scorer, but one who really emphasizes his game in the mid range. And it's just one weapon out of many that the Heat have. He looks great coming off the bench, though. So I don't know. I feel like he, don't mess with what's working.
Well, that's my point, Greg. Like, what I mean, and
no.
I don't think he would push it because I think it would come off a certain way right now, right? Like, I mean,
so
if the team's playing this well.
There's a couple things. So Ariel's heading in the right direction, and that Tyler Herro is like Eric Spoelstra literally said to the national media yesterday. He's becoming one of the more skilled players in our league. So not only is he putting the target, like Tyler Herro's putting the target on his back, Eric Spoelstra is not shying away from that either. I think when we talk about trajectories, he's of course going to be a starting player in the NBA, but right now, one thing, the organization is not going to start him because this works, and Duncan is actually like a nice piece for the 4 starters that are currently there. There's a case to be made that Tyler could also be that. But until they have a hiccup of any kind, they're not going to mess with it. And it's just down the line, it's no question he's going to start, provided he's still here, knock on wood. But it's just for right now, you just don't mess with it, and it'll come. And also, this is another thing for Tyler. I think that winning 6th man of the year, winning most improved player, those kind of accolades will reinforce this kind of stuff. And I think that there's value in that too.
Let me bring Jordan's comment back up. We always appreciate the super chat donations. We'll absolutely always read your comment. Would it be more feasible for Tyler to be in the starting lineup when Vic gets back? Vic could then have reign over the bench as his primary scorer. I do think that may be when it happens. And Ariel, that's what scares me about my 6th man of the year bet. It is happening then. I don't think it comes from Tyler. I think it comes from, okay, what is the fit between Vic and Tyler when they both are around? And then it becomes, okay, how is Duncan Robinson shooting and what has his role become? Because it could be that Duncan is the odd man out kind of when Vic comes back, when you start to get to playoff rotations and you want to get to that lockdown lineup at the end of the game. I could see that happening. I don't see it happening now. Here's the other thing. Manu Ginobili is going to the Hall of Fame. If he's not, he's there already, or he's going. Okay, one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, if the worst case scenario is that Tyler Herro has to fill in Manu Ginobili for a team that is a contender for multiple championships,
decade,
I mean, I don't know that he would have a huge issue. He's also 21 years old. Like, I mean, he's got a lot of his career ahead of him. I just think you leave it the way it is. But I think the other stuff that Ariel got to, I do want to touch on. Because we did throw his name into the trade machine for a whole bunch of different players around the NBA. And look, like I said, I was hearing there was a very strong chance, I said 75% at the time, that he was going to get traded. That stuff was out there, I can tell you.
At the beginning of the summer, before the work was put in?
It was coming from inside the organization. It was coming from outside the organization. It was coming from agents of fellow players. It was coming from all over the place. It was coming from executives around the league. Obviously, that's not paramount right now. Then you see kind of what happened today, the Chris Haynes story with Dame Lillard. Of course, we always talk about the relationship Haynes has with Lillard. That story comes about of how Lillard, again, reinforces. Not even LeBron could convince Dame to leave, right? It seems like a little tampering there, but whatever. Not even LeBron could convince Dame to leave. So I think a lot of the players we've talked about trading Herro for were never really feasible because the guys have to actually want to go. Beal, Lillard, etc. But you mentioned Colin Sexton. We were talking pre-show. Like, it was a no-brainer. You trade Tyler Herro for Brandon Ingram, right? Like that. We talked about that one. We did a whole podcast on that one. You both were saying, and I'll let Alex weigh in here, you wouldn't even do that, right? Because New Orleans is going to implode here, right? So Ingram may be available. He seems like the perfect fit next to Bam. We talked about this. Mm-hmm. Would anybody here make that trade right now?
Hitting me with the tough questions, and I don't appreciate you overhearing my conversations with fans at the watch party, using it for content.
I didn't hear it. No, that's Ariel.
No, we were doing this. We were doing this pre-show.
Oh,
Ariel and
I thought you said that you heard me say something about the Ingram, because we were talking about that last night at the watch party. You were right next to me, so I'm like, oh wow.
I was drinking beer. I don't know. Go ahead, continue.
Look, the Ingram thing is something that up to maybe a few games ago, I probably still would have, done in theory, right? Not that I'm looking to trade Tyler Herro or anything like that. I do appreciate you hitting me with the tough questions. I wouldn't do it right now. I simply wouldn't, especially because knowing that with the contracts, you would also have to throw in Duncan. Right, so that makes it even easier of a no, right? Whereas, if it was a 1-for-1, maybe, but no. The thing is, Tyler, the way that he's playing right now, and you also mix in Duncan's impact, the way we talked about endlessly over the past couple of seasons, there's no way I'm packaging those two right now. The way that things are looking right now, it's like it's fitting together too well to mess with. And I think Ingram's scoring profile is actually kind of similar to Tyler's, right? I just think Ingram is a lot taller and longer, so that's obviously useful. But I don't know, man. Tyler is clearly just the beginning of his growth. I want to see what happens to him. There's no way I'm packaging them in Duncan for Ingram, you know. And look, Duncan for Ingram. If you find a way to do a package like that,
there's no way
you got to you know Duncan in some picks somehow. I guess you could think about that, but there's no way I'm doing the both of them for Brandon Ingram anymore. And that's a big step up from where we were before because it was a no-brainer, like you said.
Let's get to the next part of this. You mentioned he could be an all-star. I mean, that's a high bar. He would have to be averaging something close to what he's averaging now. There's obviously a lot of really good guards in the Eastern Conference, ascending guards beyond just Trey. You've got LaMelo Ball, and there are others on some other teams. Chicago, you've added DeRozan there. Zach LaVine made his first all-star team. I mean, there's a lot of competition for those spots. But, I mean, again, if he's going to be doing this off the bench, I don't think that being a sixth man would preclude him from being an all-star. That has happened before. Manu made all-star teams, right? I think, so that could certainly happen. But let's go to the next stage. We've seen him now develop. He's better, obviously, in making reads. There's no question about that. Three-point shooting is starting to come back a little bit. Defensively, I
have a stat about the reads, by the way.
Well, go to the reads, and then we'll go to the next part of this. What is the stat about the reads?
This is not even a take, but just specifically, his assist percentage has gone up by 5 every season. So he took another step up this year, went from 18 to 23, and the turnover percentage did not go up at all. So, that's just something to point to that.
It strikes to him speaks of making better decisions. What is next? Like, because we always talk about with Bam, what's the next progression? We're going to get to him here in a second. Do the last 10 minutes on him. What is next for Herro?
I mean, I think what's next, I hate to say that the TNT guys actually touched on something that was relevant because, I don't like to give them very much credit because of the obvious.
Yeah.
They talked about Tyler Herro handling double teams and what that looks like. And when he's game planned for differently. Like, I think as this season started, you would ask around the league and most head coaches had the target on Duncan Robinson for game planning instead of Tyler Herro. So but eventually that's going to complete, and it probably already has completely flip-flopped. So how does he react to now teams trying to take away what he's doing right? And when he goes through a rough stretch, I can't emphasize this enough to all the listeners and viewers. When they go through a tough stretch, don't freak out because can they stay at this level all season? I don't know. Can Tyler? I don't know. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily falling off a cliff. I just think it's hard to do that all year. Yeah. But the next step for him is essentially all-star. I mean, he's playing at an all-star level now. I mean, right now, if they continue playing and the metrics continue to shake out the way that they are, they could legitimately, and this is how much the NBA changes fast, they could get 4 all-stars like the Hawks did that one year. I know that sounds crazy, but if you go look at the metrics, they literally lead the league in almost every.
Their numbers are absurd. To dive into Heat stats is to dive into a world of absurdity. It makes no sense. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be great when Kyle Lowry's averaging 9.5 points and he's the Heat's 4th all-star.
Maybe that one's a stretch.
People around the country are going to love that one. Let's pivot here in our last few minutes to Bam. We've obviously seen progression every single year with what he does. Now we're starting to see him play, I think, more freely, that he doesn't have to handle the ball as much. We're seeing Kyle Lowry force feed the action to him, which we expected to happen. We're seeing him disappear for shorter stretches than he has previously. And obviously the defense has gone up another level now where he's holding guys to 20% shooting. So we'll start here. What has been most, we'll go around real quick here. What has been most impressive about his start to you, Ariel?
Low-hanging fruit has to be the rebounding, but I think it's easily explained, right? We've all talked about how the Heat are dropping more and he doesn't have to switch out onto the perimeter so much. And so there are more, he's near the basket more and he's able to grab more rebounds. But I think more than that, the reason that he's rebounding as well as he is that the Heat defense is so elite that there are just so many more missed shots and so many more available rebounds. And on top of that, the addition of PJ Tucker has helped on the boards just because of how good he is at boxing out. He boxes out like his life depends on it. And so it makes life easier on Bam Adebayo. What's impressed me the most is probably just, again, it's just the rebounding. I mean, he was, what was he at last year? 9 rebounds a game, something like that, under 10. And he's at 13 or 14 right now. It's just absurd. I don't know if he's really going to, sustain 14 rebounds per game through the end of the season. He might settle in somewhere around 11 and a half, 12, but that's still fantastic for him. For me, if he keeps the scoring up, if he's able to take another step in that department, which we've seen to an extent, a lot of that is due to, Kyle Lowry kind of making sure that he doesn't entirely disappear in games, which is something that I noticed last night. In the first half, Bam was a little bit kind of just floating through the game. And then as soon as the second half started, you see Kyle looking for him constantly in the half court, making sure that he stays involved in the game. So it's an amalgamation of things on the Bam, like specifically from Bam's perspective. Try to stay aggressive, keep grabbing rebounds. The defense, like you said, he's been spectacular. He's just locking dudes up and should be one of the leading candidates for Defensive Player of the Year.
What for you, Alex?
Well, it's interesting because, like what Ariel was pointing out, the biggest statistical jump is the rebounding. And I think we're all like really impressed with the scoring stuff. His percentages, efficiency-wise, are all down in different places. So that's not me talking down on what he's doing at all. I think that's a result of what he's doing, right? Is like he's going for more of those scoring looks. He's getting way more of those isolation and post-up looks than before. I don't have those numbers on me, but that's the biggest change in their offense, right? Whereas before he was more of a dribble handoff setup guy, and now he's looked at as this guy to get his own shot. Therefore, efficiency is down as a scorer. I just think when you look at the rebounding percentage, it went from 23 to 32 when you talk about defensive rebounding. So it's like, what Ariel said, that could be explained by the drop, but it's also like it's made such a huge difference. And by the way, to talk about all that talk about Bam not being a 5 and all that, every single season he's been in the league, he's been in the 85th percentile or higher in defensive rebounds, and mostly in the 90s, except for his rookie year. So Bam has always been a really good rebounder, even if he doesn't look it sometimes. I think a lot of it, as we talked about before, has to do with the scheme. One interesting thing is, and I know I've gone a little bit stat heavy here, it's just because I've been looking through different stuff as we've been talking about it, specifically on this show, but his defensive playmaking stats are also down as far as steals percent, block percent. Yeah. And I think that's also a testament to how solid their defense already is, because the real playmakers, the way that their defense is set up, are Jimmy, Kyle, as far as the point of attack. Like, I think they all kind of have their roles there, and I think he doesn't have to make as many plays. It's more about like staying solid with the rotation and where you're supposed to be. So Bam is everywhere on both ends of the court, and we're seeing everything we really want to see with him. I think he's just going to keep getting better as far as figuring out when to shoot versus when to go for a drive, because I think he really looks for that jumper a lot. But I'm happy to see it, man. Everything is going so smoothly right now. Can't talk bad about any of it.
Greg, for you?
Yeah, so there's two things, and then it's not going to be stat heavy at all. The fact that his field goal attempts have gone up by 2 and the free throw attempts have gone up, and the 85% from the line, like that is also, I like to see that with the increased free throws. So that's the stats that you get from Greg Sylvander this evening. What I think is the most
free throw attempts.
Boom. The 6.8, almost 7 free throws a game. So this is crazy to me. He goes from being probably noted as a top 3 passing big man, and he's still that. That hasn't gone away, right? The ability to completely like put that on the shelf and go in a completely different direction and excel the way that he has, like in a totally different role. I just think that speaks to how versatile he really is. And then now to be like essentially one of the best rebounders and that just whole fluctuation of his game, and to stay as good as he's been. And also the defensive stuff, locking up Luka, and I love those things, but that's a mark of a guy who, when I talk about no ceiling, part of it is that adaptability and being able to do all these different things with different teams and different roles and responsibilities. And I think that that's super key.
I got to tell people here. Royal says, tell the people, so I'll tell the people. Clutch Corner coming up at 8 o'clock. They've got a brand new intro. It's not as good as me reading poetry on 5 on the Floor is going to be, but it's pretty damn good. So check out Clutch Corner at 8 o'clock. Here's a question here. From GSH Everything, and then I'll close here on the BAM topic. Guys, what type of nickname you all have for this team? Really enjoying watching this team play basketball. I mean, I know they're calling themselves the Kennel. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. Although we do have the Just Dogs T-shirt on the website, so they kind of played right into that. I know some of them said Biscayne Bullies. I feel like it's going to be organic. Like most of this stuff, it's organic. I don't like naming teams because I literally named the Heatles, in a column in the Sun Sentinel, and the very next day LeBron stole it. And if I had actually gone out and trademarked that thing, I would not be on this program right now. So I don't want to name. I don't want to name any other teams. I have the column. I have proof of it, and I never got credit for it. So I'm just gonna leave that. Yeah, a little bit. So we'll leave it there. But let's close with this. So if you guys can come up with a name, we'll take them. We'll take them. But I feel like it's gonna be organic. Let's pose with this final question on Bam. Everybody's sort of exactly NBA champs equals the nickname. That's the one that they want. I think the question with Bam is where he's going to fit in the league, right? Ultimately, like we have had, he's a top 20 player, maybe sort of nudges in the top 15. He got into some of those lists. He dropped before this season, which to me was a little bit silly because his year last year was yet better than the year before. I'll just throw it out there. Give this to me in like 30 seconds each, okay? Alex, can he be top 10?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he's going to do it this season. I think he's a lot closer to top 10 than a lot of people previously thought.
Wow, that was 12 seconds. You had 18 more.
I can do it in 7 words.
Go ahead.
Best player on a championship team.
Oh,
that's a good question. I'm gonna close with that, but I'm gonna let Ariel jump in here. What do you got?
I like it, Greg, but that's still Jimmy. But I mean, he can get there. I don't know if he'll get there this season. He's got the ability. I mean, if he wins Defensive Player of the Year and he sustains, 20 plus and 13 rebounds a game, there's no way you can't put him in the top 15 conversation at worst. So he's right on that fringe, I think.
I think they've got 2 top 15 guys right now as it is, and Lowry is probably hanging somewhere around 30.
Yeah.
In that range. And I mean, where is Tyler, right?
That's a good question.
Tyler?
I'm so ready. Hey, I'm down to have this conversation. Most people think, you
let's
might
put him at 14. That sounds right.
I'll say this. Tyler
one ahead of Jason Tatum.
Always. Tyler is living up to the rankings he was getting before last season. Is interesting. He's actually rising up to that. The best player on a championship team is a good conversation, and I'm going to table it because I feel like we could do a whole podcast on that or something else because there's very few players over the past 25 years who have proven they could be the best player on a championship team. There's like 6 guys. That's it. Dwayne was one of them. LeBron was one of them. Tim Duncan was one of them. Kobe or Shaq was one of them. Kawhi was one of them. That's about it. Okay.
That doesn't even really matter with this team.
Right. And now Giannis was one of them, right?
I didn't mean for this season. Just
and Curry or Durant. But I'm saying, but that's a very short list. Like the guys who've actually accomplished that, there's not a whole lot of them. Not the 76ers, exactly, not the process. All right, we appreciate it. Thanks to Alex for jumping in here. Thanks to Ariel, of course. And you can follow his work on Full Court Press as well, and also the Post Up 5R, which, I mean, they're killing us with the numbers. We got to pump up the podcast numbers here. Good shirt there. Get that one. I got my vintage shirt on here.
I need a new one.
I'll get you a new one. I ordered some. I don't know when they're going to get here. I got my vintage Timmy and Zoe shirt on. We're going to be giving away some hats for sure, which Greg has got on at the next watch party. That's a Quarterdeck in Sunrise next Monday. Thanks to our sponsors, everythingtradeshows.com, prizepicks.com, of course, and all the other great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Have a good night.
Yes, Dean.